Hello and welcome to Rated G for Grok. I'm Grok. Today I will be joining the myriad of other individuals on the internet, offering their unasked for opinions on things they probably aren't qualified to talk about. I will be discussing my uneducated opinion on movies. Specifically, we will be discussing two possession films that I recently watched and I, in my professional opinion, found to be in a similar vein. I would be referring to the 2023 film When Evil Lurks, directed by Demián Rugna, starring Ezekiel Rodriguez and Damien Solomon, and the 2023 film Evil Dead Rise, directed by Lee Cronin, starring Alyssa Sutherland and Lily Sullivan. Now, both movies involve siblings, some kind of idiot kids running around, and some form of demon bebopping around town, possessing a bunch of people. However, these two movies do this concept very differently. The first half of this video will go into each individual film. I'll go over the synopsis, a little bit more detail about it, and go into what I liked about it, what I did not like about it, and we'll end it off with a general rating out of 20. I think 20 is more specific, 10 sucks. The second half is where we're going to go into specifics. I'm going to give specific examples of what made me like this film, what made me not like this film, and try and draw connections between the two. So that's going to be the second half. We're going to begin phase one with When Evil Lurks. When Evil Lurks is a psychological supernatural horror movie told in Spanish that I found absolutely captivating. I watched it with a dear friend of mine and we were absolutely shook to the core throughout the entire film. Now this film is set in a rural town in the middle of nowhere, Argentina. It follows two brothers and they're dealing with basically pure evil. It's set in a world where not only is evil completely acknowledged and known, but there are rules to it and ways to deal with it. They stumble into a body which is pretty much impregnated with pure evil itself, and their main goal is to get it out of their lives, get it out of their town, and keep it away from their families. Now things obviously go wrong and, general possession ensues. Now I'm going to go ahead and rank this film and explain the details, give you more about the film as we go. Now, the ranking system is split into the most normal and sane way to rate a movie. The Paul system, that's right. Now out of 20, P, plot, A, acting, U, uniqueness, and L, likability-ness. For the plot of this film, Ryan or future me, please put plot, please, right there. Now, in my professional opinion, this movie did an amazing job of making real characters make real human decisions. A lot of the things that they did, I said, yeah, I would probably do that. Now, were there a lot of things I would not do? Of course, but those are Bozo moments, and we'll get to that later. The character building was amazing. They stuck true to their characters. A lot of movies will build a character and then suddenly take it all down with a decision that completely disregards everything they just told us. They cleared up all the plot holes, at least that I saw with my very trained eye. Genuinely, overall, I didn't see any plot holes that would piss me off too much. Little to no loose ends. Don't scream at me. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. For P, for Paul, for plot. Next is A for acting. Acting is such a big thing for me. Acting for me can make or break a film, and this movie was phenomenal. The main characters of this movie, I can't tell you enough, did such an amazing job. If acting also pisses you off, this movie will not do that. There were even kids at the end of it. And the kids didn't even piss me off. When a movie has a whole gaggle of children and none of their acting pisses me off, that's when you know they're gonna get a good score. Acting, A for acting, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. Write that down. Okay, it's U for uniqueness. Everything's been done and that's just kind of how it goes. But if you can get a new fun twist on it, I will be very impressed. And this movie absolutely did that. Loved the concept of this is a world where possession is accepted. This is something that people have dealt with. There are rules, there are ways to handle it. You just gotta handle it appropriately. And things do not get handled appropriately. The only thing I would ding it for is I have seen obviously a lot of possession films, and this does have a few common traits, and some people get possessed and some people don't, and the lines are a little blurry there. So I would give it a 4.5 out of U for uniqueness. Finally, the one everyone's been waiting for, likability. Like it or not, I loved it. If you're gonna write a 10-page essay, I wouldn't write on this movie. There were some beautiful cinematic shots. The writing was fun. The scenes were interesting. Overall, I absolutely adored it. Likability, I'm giving it a 6 out of 5. Screw you, I make my own rules. Final rating on the Paul rating system. Gotta do some math. 20.5 out of 20. Screw you, I can do whatever I want. Overall, it's a fun movie. It's a great movie. I highly recommend it. Rock thumbs up. Alright, now we're on to Evil Dead Rise. This movie follows two sisters. They're a little estranged, but they're making up. Great. Have you ever seen the Evil Dead movies? If you haven't seen the Evil Dead movies, there's bad books. Read them, bad stuff happen. Demons. If you have seen the Evil Dead movies, this was not it. I love the Evil Dead series. It's always been a funny series. It's honestly scary. It's a lot of times gory, but it's hilarious. There's so many funny scenes that they include, and that's always been it for the franchise. This movie tried to steer away from that. Now, we'll get more into that into the part 2, but for right now, all I'll say is if you want to watch this movie, don't expect the traditional funny hee-ha-ha-ha of Evil Dead. This is more of a serious film, more of a scary film. Still a very good film. It does, however, follow the traditional plot point. Someone finds a bad book, bad stuff happens. I'd love to tell you more about the synopsis, but nothing happened. This movie is just simply people trying to live. There were not many plot points. They find bad book, bad stuff, bad time. If you were new, this would probably just be scary movie, very confusing. How does that work? And if you're an old timer, you're gonna be like, scary movie, very confusing. How does that work? So, plot 2 out of 5. A for acting. Acting was so good. The demon was, I think, the best portrayal of a demon I may have ever seen in a movie. And that's coming from someone who can't remember 3 months ago. So don't, it was really good. It was phenomenal. If I was just rating her score, it'd be 10 out of 5. Genuinely, such a good job. I was uncomfortable. She made me feel icky. Demon bad. Now, there were kids in this movie too. These kids were not as good. These kids were not as good as the gaggle from the first film. Not all of them were great. Not all of them were bad. I'm gonna give the rating 4.5 out of 5. Just because the main actress and the demon both blew me away. You for uniqueness. There was some unique gore. There was some unique concepts. Overall, it's definitely been done before, if not by the very own franchise. They did take a slightly different take on it, which is something that I personally didn't love, but it was unique to the series. We'll go more into that in phase 2. It wasn't that unique. It was a fun movie. It was fun to watch. Very scary, but does that make it unique? No. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. The most important part of the Paul scale, likability, likeableness. I would say I don't know if I liked it. It was fun. It was definitely a fun movie, and it was scary. I was scared the whole time. However, there was no downtime. I feel like a very imperative part of being scared and making a movie truly dreadful is having some downtime to build up that anticipation. There was no downtime. It was a very short movie. It was 1 hour and 17 minutes of just gore. It went from 0 to 100 and it stayed 100 till the very end of the movie. 2 out of 10 for the likability. It was fun, but I didn't like it. I liked it. Would I watch it again? No. Alright, final Paul rating, 10.5 out of 20. Not great, not terrible. If you want to have a fun movie where you just watch it with your friends and go and genuinely feel icky inside, this is a good movie for that. I don't know if the Evil Dead fans will like it for what it did or dislike it for what it did. I try not to look at other reviews. I try to form my own opinions and I look at reviews later. So I haven't actually looked at how other people have received this movie. This is just how I felt about it and the person I watched it with. And I'm probably going to get some Evil Dead people screaming at me. Don't. I'm soft. I'll cry. Alright, now we're gonna start phase 2. We're gonna have a big phase 2 warning. I'm so excited. It's time for Win Evil Lurk. Time to go. Okay. The movie begins by introducing the two brothers, Pedro and Jimmy. They hear some gunshots in the woods and go to investigate. They come across a body, very dead, not alive, cut in half. They find some writing on this body indicating the name Maria Elena, the name of an elderly woman who lives nearby. They go to investigate, and we discover the rotten for the first time. They are icky. They are gross. They made me feel sick. We find out this is the son of Maria, the eldest named Uriel. Now, I loved this introduction because me as a viewer, I knew this was a demon movie, I knew this was a possession movie, but I didn't know anything else about it. And this is not your general idea, general visualization of a demon from film. This is kind of where we find out that there's some protocol that should have been followed. This is something that people have dealt with in the past. This is not something that was out of the realm of possibility for them. Now we find out Maria, the woman, tried to report this to the authorities, do the proper channels. About a year ago, no one came. She tried to take matters into her own hands and hired a cleaner, aka the Mr. Half-Dead person in the woods. So there's the mystery of who killed that guy, and also what do we do with this guy? The brothers try to go to the police and hold them accountable. You gotta take care of this, it's been a year. This is kind of where we find out that there's on a timeline. We can't just kill this guy with a gun, we can't just murder him in his sleep, we have to keep him alive and handle him the correct way. This is where we kind of start to see a glimpse where, okay, this is normal, we have protocol, why are we not following protocol? Clearly this is something that happens in bigger cities, not such a rural town, so the police do not believe him. We kind of get a glimpse of the fact that the main character, Pedro, is not 100% trustworthy and not trusted by his fellow peers and townsfolk. The brothers say, fine, we don't need you guys, we're gonna talk to Ruiz. I probably would have handled it with Ruiz as well, because Ruiz is insane. He's the landowner for that property, and he was not having it. Ruiz was pissed. He was pissed this wasn't handled accordingly. He was pissed this thing was on his land, and he was pissed that this is something he and his pregnant wife had to deal with. So naturally, he angrily storms out in the middle of the night with a gun. Him storming over very aggressively to the house to confront Uriel and his mother with a gun is a fun little way to find out that we cannot use guns. They explain that if you kill the demon in the wrong way, it kind of spreads it into the air. We got air demons. No one wants air demons. So Ruiz is all grumbly. He doesn't do it. He says, I'm gathering the boys. We're getting them out of town. Now me, I would love to give this a Bozo point. However, what I said earlier about this film being so human in the decision making, I don't know all the rules. Even after knowing all the rules, I was still like, yeah, let's move him. If we can't kill him, no one's coming. Let's get him out of our town. Call me crazy. At this moment, I said, this guy's good. This guy's onto something. He was not good, and he was not onto something. We load up the truck after a very gross sequence of the icky man falling everywhere and squeegeeing all over the place. We try and drop him off a couple hours away. Kid gets in the middle of the road. We swerve. Body goes flying. Not our problem. Let's head home. Body's out of town. The next evening, apparently the squeegee all over the yard got to the goats. This is our first example of how the possession works. We assume that the goats munched on some grass with the squeegee, got. One goat is very obviously devil. We get a fun little scene with the horns, and the devil's staring him down, saying, shoot me in the head, which, as we learned, would unleash the demon spores into the air and get everyone got. We are not to shoot this goat in the head. So what do? We shoot the goat in the head. That's right, 1 Bozo point for the most stupid action you could do to start the movie off. I absolutely love this scene. This is the first time we get to see a demon in action. There are no words in this scene between the man and the goat, but you can tell he's somehow manipulating him, somehow affecting him. The man obviously shoots the goat. The wife is immediately not having it. This is when we find out that not only are they aware of these demon possessions, they are petrified of it. They would rather die. She instantly axes her husband in the face and turns the axe on herself. Such a powerful scene, so hard to watch. As soon as the brothers find this out, they know that it is time to leave town. They decide to go separate routes. Jimmy goes to go pick up their mother, while Pedro goes to pick up their, as we find out, family. He has an ex-wife and 2 children, and he decides to go grab them and skip town. Jimmy picks up his mom with no problems. We cut back to Pedro, and we get the classic trope of no one believes me. We find out that Pedro kind of sucks ass, bad dad, left the picture, wasn't seen for 4 years, maybe tried to kill his kid. We'll figure that out later. All we know is that no one believes him, no one trusts him. Now, what's so cool about this scene, this is a very done trope. Something crazy is happening, the main character or someone witnesses, try to tell someone else, they don't believe them. Now, what's cool about this little twist is this is something people know has happened. They know rotten exists, they know possessed has happened, but it's never happened in their town. And because of that, combined with the untrustworthiness of the main character, no one believes him, and he's so desperate that someone will. Now, when they were splitting up, they agreed to leave everything behind, including their clothes. Now, what pissed me off is they seem to have been wearing clothes. That was one thing I noticed instantly. I was like, well, if it's so important to leave everything behind that the possession and the rotten might have touched, why are we not wearing no clothes? Obviously, it doesn't make any sense to go into town naked. Would it have been the most logical thing? No. Would it have been the safest thing? Probably yes. So while Pedro is currently arguing with his ex-wife and her new husband, the 2 kids are seen petting the family dog. Now, right before the 2 kids were seen petting the family dog was seen sniffing Pedro's clothes right before he burned them. This is where we start to get that sense, that feeling that perhaps that's not a great thing, and something might go wrong. The dog suddenly turns on the daughter of the ex-wife and new husband, snaps on her, starts shaking her under the table, drags her lifeless body out of the house. The mother is screaming. such a strong array of emotion from everyone in the house. I also was really taken aback by how hard this movie goes. There's a few things that you don't really touch with cinematography and movies in general, and that's kids dying, animals killing kids, people killing themselves when they're pregnant. And this movie said, let's do all of them at once within the very first part of the movie. Pedro and his ex-wife's new husband go chasing after the dog. Pedro witnesses the ex-husband shoot the dog after imploring over and over again not to shoot, because as we know, if you kill it the wrong way, it's released upon everywhere nearby. Clearly at this point, still no one believes him that there was a possession in town. The father of the child is clearly so overcome with grief, and combine that with the untrustworthiness of the character, he doesn't listen to what he says, shoots the dog. Pedro says, we gotta get out of here too. Grabs his 2 children, and as he goes in, he witnesses the daughter coming back. Oh yay, the child's fine. The child who was ripped and thrown around and dragged down the street comes on back. Hey mommy, daddy's gonna hit you with a car. Pedro's rounding up the munchkins, and as we're heading out, we see new husband run over ex-wife with car, and little demon daughter dancing playfully. Super cute, super fun, love a good family moment. So now the boys have their mother, Pedro has his 2 sons and some trauma, and they head out. So they go out of town, they have no money. Uh-oh, good thing Jimmy happens to have a badass gilf ex-lover whose house we can crash at, who's also rich. They gas up and get ready to go, but thank goodness Sabrina, the ex-wife, calls to check on her kids. Thank goodness the woman who got mowed down by a car calls to check on her kids. What a good mom. Now, Pedro hasn't told everyone that Sabrina and her daughter are dead. He's kind of keeping that a little on the hush-hush for right now because he doesn't really know what he just saw. He needs time to process it. So when she calls, he answered. Some general demon meanness ensues. I never loved you. Your kids don't love you. You whack sex. I cheated on you. Hey, also, I'm coming to get the kids. I'm sure it's fine. Anyways, let's go to Gilf's house. Gilf's house time, yay! So while we're heading to Gilfy's, we get a little bit more rules. We get a very fun song. Se meten en tu cuerpo, te infectan la mente, te roban lo más preciado de tu vida. Tu cuerpo ya no es tu cuerpo. Eso sí es el Grandma's clearly a goofy goober, but we as the viewers get more insight on truly how well known this is. They have a little song. I'm sure the little kids run around before coming demons sing it, We get to the Gilf's house, Myrta, and here we take a little nap. It's a time for rest, a time for honk shoe, and as we're slumbering, Sabrina, ex-wife, comes back to pick up her kids. It's her time. They split custody. It's her time to pick up the kids. To be fair, she called ahead. We can't fault her. She grabs the youngest child, leaps out the window, runs into the night. This is where we find out from Myrta, aka Gilfy, Gilfinator, Gilf 9000, that she has some experience in this. She's dealt with possessed, she's dealt with the rotten before, and she gives some advice. She says, hey, they feed on your biggest fears. This demon has dealt with you before. I wouldn't go. The demon's probably going to know you're coming, yada yada. It's going to make it worse, blah blah blah. We're going to send Jimmy. So Jimmy goes after the kid. Now Gilfy says, hey, buck up, Chuck. We got to find the rotten and I have to deal with it properly. We find out that Gilfy's not only a baddie, she used to be a baddie hunter. She used to be one of the specified badasses who took care of possessed and rotten in the correct way. So we cut back to Pedro. He actually catches up with Sabrina. Oh, everything's gonna be great. She's eating the boy. The boy's being eaten. She's walking on down the road, getting her steps in. Son tucked under her arm, some family bonding time. Cranial head open, brains getting munched on. Pedro proceeds to run Sabrina over. Sabrina says some demon nonsense. We used to smush. We find out, hey, maybe Pedro's not the best brother in the world. End of the Pedro-Sabrina storyline. We'll come back to that. Now we go back to Gilf and company, okay? We find where the dead body ended up. A school. With kids. Bad kids. Zombie bad demon kids. We walk in there, these zombie demon bad kids, they killed their teachers, they're all dusty, they're icky, they're lying, they're gaslighting. Bad kids, we don't like them, we should kill them, but we can't because we have to do it correctly. That's right, it's one of those rules or whatever. So don't worry, we found the body, we have the guilt, great. She's gonna take care of this whole situation. You just have to listen to her. You just have to listen to her. Are we going to? No. Nah. Instead of listening to the woman whose backstory was, hey, I hunted these for a while with my old husband, let's instead listen to the zombie dead evil demon children that are clearly telling us to fall for a trap and go get the axe in the other room and leave Gilf unattended to get murdered by a bunch of demon children. Okay, Gilf's dead. That's okay. We got another Bozo point. That's okay. We have the equipment. She told us how to use the equipment. We got this. We're gonna save the day. Oh, instead of saving the day, what if we just bash him over the head with the equipment and release the demon we've been trying to stop since the very beginning of the film? What if we did that instead? Bozo at 10,000 Bozo points. So this movie ends with the big naked demon child frolicking off with the other demon children into the field, dapping Pedro up for his good work and companionship. Pedro goes home, Mario and Luigi hug in the front yard. Everything's great, Grandma's dead, who cares? She got eaten by the other son. So we end the film with just the feeling of this one man somehow just ruined everything. I actually loved this ending, and a lot of people might not have liked it. Like I said, I don't look at other reviews. I try not to look at other people's opinions because I really want to give my own, because it's worth so much and so qualified and so educated this opinion it is. I love this ending because we were given no redeemable moments. It was so on par for him. We kept waiting for him to be the hero. We kept waiting for him to make a good decision. And every step of the way, death followed. Bad choices were made. I feel as though a lot of movies make the audience and the viewer frustrated for bad things. It's more like, why is he not just saying this? This would clear up the whole thing, or no one would do that. Why is he doing that? But this movie made you frustrated because the main character is genuinely such an idiot. But at the same time, he makes human mistakes. I love the beginning. I love the middle. I love the end. It wasn't a perfect movie, but I don't care. I don't know everything in the world about movies. I just know that I've seen a lot, and this one made me happy. I loved watching it. I've shown multiple people this movie, and I will probably continue to show multiple people this movie. On to Evil Dead Rise. Okay, this one's gonna be a lot shorter. Don't worry. Now we start out with some silly teens at a lake house being silly teens, okay? Very traditional. Girl gets sick. Bad stuff happens. Flashback time. The girl's just randomly killing everyone. Time for a flashback so we understand why. Demon stuff. So we start this film being introduced to Beth. She is a set tech, sound tech, for a band. Okay, not important. What is important is Beth is pregnant. Uh-oh, Beth doesn't seem like she wants to be a mom. Beth decides to just drop in on her estranged sister who she hasn't talked to in a few years, Elle. Elle has 3 kids, Cassie, Danny, and Bridget. This is where we start to get the picture that Beth is not the best sister. Her and Elle haven't spoken in a few years, even though Elle has reached out to her. We find out that Elle has been left, she's going through divorce, and she's very vulnerable. And even though she reached out to Beth, Beth did not reach out to her. So the sisters kind of hash out their trauma. They want to talk a little bit more about the estrangement and, who did what. So they send the kids to go get some pizza. The kids come back from getting pizza. An earthquake happens. A pretty severe one. Kids drop the pizza. First Bozo point. 1 Bozo point right there. Don't drop the pizza. Hold on. They drop it intentionally. It's not the earthquake. They drop it and run. Just take it with you. Now they're in their parking garage, the 3 kids with the dropped pizza because they're idiots. And the earthquake opens a pretty child-shaped hole in the ground. And so the oldest son says, I'm going to go inside that child-shaped hole in the ground, which I would give another Bozo point. I'd probably do it too. If I saw a me-shaped hole in the ground, I'd probably check it out. Although I am a bit of a bozo, so I'm going to give that half a bozo point. We're at 1.5. Honestly, whether I would do it or not is not a good indication of if it's a bozo action. So the kid goes down there. There's a creepy vault. Okay, keep exploring? Sure, fine. However, you're going to find some creepy pictures, some creepy discs, little priest movement involved. Take the stuff? Sure. Okay, I'm still with you, kid. Now, right about where he loses me would be when the giant Jesus on the cross hanging on the wall, the cross, falls down. Okay, let's explore that area. Go in. Bajillions of hanging, dangling, bejangling crosses hovering over a very sketchy looking sarcophagus with little Latin Satan looking words all over it. What are you gonna do? Search it, of course. Now, I'm actually going to give this 10 Bozo points. And I've seen the Evil Dead movies. I know that the book usually calls to people, but they didn't really allude to that in this scene. It was kind of just an idiot kid being an idiot kid. So in this very sketchy sarcophagus with all the demon scribbles, he finds a little demon book that just screams, don't touch that. I can't begin to explain how much. I'll show you. That screams, don't touch that. 10 more Bozo points. I don't even know where we're at right now. What do? We don't call the police or a priest or close the hole back up ourselves. We grab it. We grab it in our little child backpack and take it upstairs with the fallen pizza and our siblings. So the kid takes the book back up to his house. His mom's freaking out because there was an earthquake, obviously. Everyone's fine. Kiss, hugs. Let's go check out the creepy book. Creepy book closed. Ouch. I stabbed myself on the mouth that is clearly sharp-teethed closed book. Uh-oh, my blood has soaked into the book and opened it up. Great. Now we can read it. Thank God, that was easily solved. So we're paging through this very terrifying book with its terrifying images. The older brother and the older sister said, hey, let's not touch that anymore. We're gonna get rid of it in the morning. The older brother says, yeah, sure. Great gal. She gets out of the room. He said, instead of doing that, let me use my conveniently placed DJ habit and hobby to spin the track on my sketchy little vinyls that I found alongside the book. We proceed to listen, because of course we do. It is a priest explaining to a gaggle of priests, I assume, that he found this book. He thinks it's going to be great for demonology. It's going to be studied, yada yada. He starts reading from the passages of the book. This is when things get bad. If you know anything about the Evil Dead, when you read out from the book, bad things happen. Demons come out, possess people, tomfoolery ensues. So one commonality of who gets possessed, who doesn't in the Evil Dead world is kind of similar to when Evil Lurks, how we saw, where it just almost seems random. Some people get possessed, some people don't. But Evil Dead has a general clear set of rules. Sometimes they stray away from that, but I'll get further into that later because there are 3 books and apparently they have 3 different rules by the demons that are activated from it. In general, we see people who are very close to death, on the brink of death or have a very serious injury, get possessed, or we see people who are mentally broken at their wits' end, not doing too hot, they get possessed. Now, what this movie did that kind of pissed me off is it strayed away from that, strayed away from the humor. It kind of took a new thing. If it was a standalone movie, I would have been fine with it. I would have been very happy. But as someone who enjoys the old Evil Dead movies, I was fairly disappointed in the fact that the sense of humor was gone, which I knew they were straying away from that with this series, but there was not one moment in this movie that even was attempting to be funny. This movie came across with no rhyme or reason about who got possessed, who didn't. I'll get back into that later. But for right now, demon, mom is in the elevator, blah, 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 blah. No more mom bad, mom dead, mom demon. Now, I would love to talk as much about this movie as I did the last one, but genuinely nothing happens. When I say nothing happens, obviously it was a full movie, there was action, it was terrifying. When I say nothing happens is there was no plot. It didn't have hope, they didn't have downtime. It simply was mom is demon, mom is attacking. There's no way out. They're on the top floor. The stairs fell out because of the earthquake. All the doors, there's no fire escape. And they're just trying to survive. That's it. After the older sister gets possessed for seemingly no reason, which brings me back to what I was saying, there was a lot of injuries going around. At this point, I think everyone had been injured by the demon. But for some reason, the oldest daughter, who seemed the most strong mentally, was barely scratched on the cheek, and that turned to a possession. So that's why I started to question, how does the possession work? It's definitely not similar to the other Evil Dead movies, but maybe it'll continue in that pattern. It doesn't. At this point, she had killed seemingly useless side characters they had mentioned for half a second and then killed off immediately, which brought me back to the very beginning Grace. Do you remember her, Phase 1 Grace, where she said, the plot didn't make any sense? They just added a bunch of random characters just to be killed. They didn't mean anything. They didn't add anything to the story. And finally, the older brother said, hey, I have a pretty sketchy book, Aunt. Dear Aunt, do you mind checking that out? So dear Aunt Beth checks out this book, figures out it's because of this book. Thank God she's a tech, so she knows how to fix his DJ equipment. Gives the little audiobook a read of the priest and says, maybe we'll get a solution or figure out a way how to reverse this. Genuinely, I was like, okay, well, it's been a while of just ceaseless, violence and confusion and demonosity and, spooky stuff, mean demon. I was like, all right, yeah, let's get the solution. The priest is talking about how, after he read aloud, everyone got possessed, bad stuff's happening. I swear, he says, there is no way out. There is no solution. There is no way to fix this. If you hear this, run. Like, it's too late. It's too late. I said, oh. Okay, so now there's just no hope. There's no solution. They're like, we gotta get out of here. Kids die, things happen. Long story short, they're in the parking garage. But at this point, Beth is beaten to shreds. She has a hole in her hand, she got a hole in her leg, she got cheese grated at one point, and she's not possessed. So it's obviously not damage. It's not mental stability because she loses it a few times. I genuinely don't know what causes someone to be possessed and someone not to be possessed. So Beth has the youngest daughter. They're in the parking garage. They have the keys to the car. They're trying to get out. The car just mysteriously breaks. I don't know if I missed why it mysteriously breaks. It appears it got caught on something, like a hole maybe. I don't know, mysteriously breaks. Since they were in the parking garage, since the very beginning, I thought maybe something with putting the book back. There was something in the tomb that would have helped them. I thought they would have come back to the hole in the ground that had all the stuff in it. They never touched on that. Their only thought is to get out of the parking garage. So they're trying to get out. Car breaks down. They gotta go by foot. Thank goodness my favorite part of this movie came. Glommy mommy. All the dead bods glom together into a big little spider thing and start spattering after them. Now, apparently this thing is deaf, blind, and mute because they're just on the other side of the car, heavily breathing, and just sitting there. We run into some movie tomfoolery where, there's some problems, we gotta get the kid, things go wrong. Thank goodness, a whole truck of lumber equipment and a wood chipper is sitting in the parking garage next to just the regular cars in a parking garage in a city block in a parking garage. So the movie ends on a cheeky homage, a little cap tilt to Ash in the original Evil Dead movies. She ends up using a chainsaw to defeat Glommy Mommy while simultaneously pushing her into a wood chipper, which once again was in the parking garage in a city unit with no trees in sight. But I did enjoy it. I don't know what they were trying to do, but I enjoyed it and I giggled. Now, maybe this movie is too refined and too highbrow for my uncivilized, stupid palate to understand. That could very well be. I wouldn't bat an eye if you told me that's what it was. But I haven't checked. I haven't checked with the higher-ups. I haven't checked at the reviews of people who have a higher education than I. I simply just know what I like and what I don't. And this movie, I don't know. I liked it. It was fun. I wouldn't watch it again. Probably. But it was definitely a good time. I still am confused about what demographic they were trying to reach. I feel like those who love the Evil Dead would be very confused about the rules or what they were going for, and I feel like people who didn't know anything about the Evil Dead would be even more confused about the rules and what they were going for. Now it's time for comparisons, for connection building, more yapping. I think the biggest thing that separated these two movies, which were very similar. I want to reiterate that. Both of them had weird rules that seemed to apply sometimes and not other times. Both of them had very vague endings. Both of them had two siblings with specific connections that affected the rest of the movie. Both of them had kids involved. They were very similarly themed. Lots of possession, lots of demons, lots of opinions. But what I really liked about When Evil Lurks is everyone knew the rules but us. So if we were confused about a possession or why someone didn't get possessed, that's okay, because maybe it's just because we don't know. It gives the movie kind of an out. Maybe it's because we didn't hear that rule, or we missed that rule, or maybe we misunderstood, or there's rules we don't know yet. But with Evil Dead Lurks, there were no rules. They didn't know the rules, we didn't know the rules. So when something would happen that doesn't make any sense, the only thing we can go off of is other possessions. So for instance, one possession happens when that girl, Bridget, got her face cut. But when the other woman got her hand ripped open, why didn't she get possessed? Now, the biggest thing I want to touch on are the endings. The endings to me were also similar. Grace, what do you mean the endings were similar? Hear me out. Don't scream at me. Told you not to scream at me. They both had bad endings. The baddie won on both times. Even though the main characters escaped with their lives, neither bad entities were stopped. So we can assume that further chaos will ensue, further lives will be lost, and someone's going to have to clean up their mess. However, what When Evil Lurks did is they made a character who we already didn't really like that much, who messed this all up in the first place, who we didn't really care what happens to him. And we also created a world where we knew someone was going to fix this. There are groups of people, there are cleaners, there are people that know how to handle this. Previously, Gilf had mentioned that she knew how to deal with them before they hatched, which implies that someone knows how to deal with it after they hatch. There's no way this has never happened before. Someone's going to clean this up. There is hope, just not for this specific set of characters. Now with Evil Dead Rise, they left nothing. We didn't get a little hint in the audio from the priest, but my companion left something behind. I can't access it right now. It could have nothing of that sort. We have no hope for the future. Everything was left in this apartment complex, which, by the way, is soaked in blood. How are they going to explain this? Because it appears that the main character just killed a whole group of people and threw them in a wood chip. Now, once again, I'm just a grok. These are my grok opinions. I don't think you should value them. I watch a lot of movies. I try and watch a movie a day, and I love talking about it. I love movies. I love comparing movies. I'll try and pop out videos like this at least once a month, maybe every 2 weeks. At the end of every month, I'll do a quick review of all the movies I watched that month, give quick grok ratings, little Paul ratings. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this movie. this video. If you did, please drop a like and a subscription or whatever you're supposed to do on YouTube. I don't know. You can also catch me on Twitch at Miss Graciana. I stream there as well, do a little bit of variety. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, don't tell me that. I cannot handle that. Okay, bye.